Hi everyone! In this video we will factor binomials that fall in the form of a sum and difference of cubes. Factor 64m to the fourth plus m. The first thing we always want to do whenever we're factoring is number one, always see if there is a greatest common factor. Because if we can factor out something, then it makes everything left smaller and much easier to work with. In this case, there is a greatest common factor. Both of these terms, 64m to the fourth plus m, have a greatest common factor of m. The m is in common with both. So if we pull the m out in front, factoring it out or dividing it out of both terms, factors one of the m's out of the first one, so we're left with 64m cubed plus m divided by m is 1. Now we need to see if it falls in the category or the form of a sum or difference of cubes. We have an addition sign, so it's a sum. It will not fall into the pattern of a sum of squares. There is no sum of squares pattern. So if it's a plus sign between two, so that we have a binomial with a plus, then we have to look to see if the terms are cubes. So let's look at 64m cubed and see if we can cube root that. We do not need to look to see if we can square root it. 64 is a perfect cube. It's a perfect cube of 4. And m cubed, the cube root of m cubed, is m. So 64m cubed is a perfect cube. Now let's look at the number 1. If we can find the cube root of 1, then it will follow the pattern of a sum of cubes. And since 1 times 1 times 1 is 1, then the cube root of 1 is 1. So our problem follows the sum of cubes. And this will still follow the same pattern when we factor it as a binomial and a trinomial. So let's go ahead and fill it in, all of our terms, where we take the cube root of the first one and it goes into our first spot, and we cube root the second one and it goes into the second slot. So the cube root of 64m cubed, which we found is 4m, goes into our first slot for our binomial, which is 4m. And then we take the cube root of the next one and it goes in our second spot, which is just 1. And again, we'll fill in all of the signs after we fill in all of our terms. So now we're going to take our first one, we square it for the first term of the trinomial. 4m quantity squared gives us 16m squared. Then we multiply our two terms together, 4m times 1. 4 times 1 is 4 times n gives us 4m. And then for our last one, we'll square 1, so we get 1 quantity squared, which is 1. Now we follow the pattern to fill in all of our signs, which is SOAP. The first one means that the first sign is the same as the problem that we were factoring. Because it is a sum of cubes, the very first sign will be addition because it's the same. The next one is the opposite. The opposite sign of what we just put into our first one was a positive, so we put in a subtraction sign for our next sign. And the last sign is always positive. So this one will be a positive sign. And now we have correctly factored our sum of cubes to our pattern for the sum of cubes, where we take the cube root, then we square the first one for the first term, we multiply the two together for the second term, and we square the last term for the last term of the trinomial, and then we follow the SOAP pattern where we have the same sign for the binomial, the opposite for the next one, and always positive for the third one. And we're all done.